This is the English Suite Podcast, the voice of Widener University English and Creative Writing. I'm Jim Esch. In this episode, you will hear excerpts from an open mic night held on Zoom during Widener's homecoming weekend in mid-October 2022. The event was co-hosted by students Jatu Fanbala and Gabby Norris. Students, alumni, and faculty came together to read a variety of writing, favorite authors and poets, original poems, fiction, and script writing. To kick off the event, Gabby Norris read a favorite poem by the American poet Elizabeth Bishop. So pull your seat up by the fire, take a sip of coffee or tea, and enjoy.
I am really fascinated with the works of Elizabeth Bishop. I wrote a little essay on her, and one of her poems is very popular. It's called The Fish. It is a favorite of mine, and I just wanted to give it some recognition. Yeah, The Fish. I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat, half out of water, with my hook fast in a corner of his mouth. He didn't fight. He hadn't fought at all. He hung a grunting weight, battered and venerable and homely. Here and there, his brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper, and its pattern of darker brown was like wallpaper, shapes like full-blown roses, stained and lost through age. He was speckled with barnacles, fine rosettes of lime, and infested with tiny white sea lice. And underneath 2 or 3 rags of green weed hung down, while his gills were breathing in the terrible oxygen, the frightening gills, fresh and crisp with blood that can cut so badly. I thought of the coarse white flesh packed in like feathers, the big bones and the little bones, the dramatic reds and blacks of his shiny entrails, and the pink swim bladder like a big peony. I looked into his eyes, which were far larger than mine, but shallower and yellowed. The irises backed and packed with tarnished tinfoil, seen through the lenses of old scratched isinglass. They shifted a little, but not to return my stare. It was more like the tipping of an object toward the light. I admired his sullen face, the mechanism of his jaw, and then I saw that from his lower lip, if you could call it a lip, grim, wet, and weapon-like, hung 5 old pieces of fish line, or 4 and a wire leader with the swivel still attached, with all their 5 big hooks grown firmly in his mouth. A green line, frayed at the end where he broke it, 2 heavier lines, and a fine black thread still crimped from the strain and snap when it broke and he got away. Like metals with their ribbons, frayed and wavering, a 5-haired beard of wisdom trailing from his aching jaw. I stared and stared, and victory filled up the little rented boat, from the pool of bilge where oil had spread a rainbow around the rusted engine, to the bailer rusted orange, the sun-cracked thwarts, the oarlocks on their strings, the gunnels, until everything was rainbow, 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 and I let the fish go. We have the lovely Jatu reading next for us.
I will be reading a piece I've been working on. I started working on for my place-based writing class with Dr. Guzman, actually. It is called Sense Lost in Love. Okay. Steve thought he had settled on the scent of lavender long before he had a choice in the matter. He was still settling into his own home. The first thing he'd moved, unpacked, and reconstructed with his own 2 hands was his writing desk. Because even if he didn't have a proper bed to sleep on yet, he would have a proper space to sit down and write. The next thing he unpacked, with some trepidation, was the so-called gift from his parents. It was a small, black, wooden chest with a false lock on its front. When Steve opened it up, he nearly slammed it back shut. The instinct to throw the chest out of one of his nice new windows or bury it somewhere behind his home where he could forget it existed washed away with a wave of shame, and he opened it back up again, considering its contents. a set of 8 milky purple candles, and a letter. Lavender for those stress headaches of yours, Mom. He wasn't one to waste, so he sucked it up and used the candles. He found his skin itching with a phantom irritation of swollen, angry red mosquito bites from ill-spent evenings wandering in the untamed grass the lavenders in his first childhood home grew in. His shoulders tensed the way they often did when his mother scolded him for playing with the girls too much, for having too much fun playing their little games. In the privacy of his own home, he felt himself suffering from those very stress headaches his mother was trying to prevent. The burning kind that sat just behind the eyes from all the times he had wanted to cry but couldn't. He used the candles. He had run out. He used them until they were nothing but milky white puddles of wax where they once stood, and he felt, for a few weeks, a stranger in his own home. He'd wanted to treat himself with a little bit of money he'd gotten from a few successful book sales. The traveling merchant that came around these nowhere parts was nothing if not reliable, and he had been selling some fancy exotic soap, boasting of the smoothness of the lather and the strength of its lingering scent. He wanted a break from the lavender smell, so he bought it. A sting of something tangy and a little too sweet. Oranges. It reminded him of Jason. He wasn't Steve's first crush, nor even his first kiss. He had, however, been the first man he'd allowed himself to love and to fuck. Jason had about as much experience with other people as Steve did, which was something next to zero. Still, his hands had roamed across Steve's body with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing, even as he was touching Steve for the very first time. He'd rinse his hands after each of their romps and peel both of them an orange to share in bed. Steve had been obsessed with the shy way Jason's nails would bite into the top of the orange, how he would slowly and methodically peel away at the skin and deposit each piece into a bowl already filled with drying peels on his bedside table, and then split the naked orange into perfect little segments. At the beginning, he would let Steve hold the slices himself, and they would eat in mutual silence. Towards the end, Jason had taken a liking to holding Steve's jaw and feeding the slices to him. His nails would sometimes bite into Steve's skin, the shyness all gone, replaced with something too tangy in Steve's mouth. Steve found himself unconsciously checking for the phantoms of orange slice crescents bitten into the skin of his wrists or jaw until the remaining sliver of soap disappeared against the roughness of his washcloth. Oh, I'm actually announcing the next reader. Haha. Okay. So our next reader will be Seth Glickman. Surprise!
Hi, I'm Seth Glickman. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an English major and an anthropology minor, and I'm also in Dr. Cottrell's fiction class. We've been doing several different exercises to explore different craft elements, and one that really stuck with me was this piece that I did about using setting as antagonist. So that's what I'll be reading here, and for me, what that sparked was the idea of chess. So yeah, I apologize to those in my class who will have the displeasure of hearing it twice. There is a square world divided into 64 provinces. At each horizon sits a pair of monarchs, their advisors, their soldiers, and their religious leaders. Laws and gravity bind them in their courtly positions until they're maneuvered by spirits of past and present. Each monarch's domain presents an array of creative choices, none of which are theirs to make. Rather, it is the spirits who decide. The whispers of names, Alekhine, Capablanca, and Steinitz, comprise the ambient background noise of the realm, looming like spiraling slogans on the screen display of a distant Zeppelin. Each soldier is born into this world with a black and white purpose, victory or nothing. When they march, they lower the steel face guards of their helms and set their eyes on the enemy, and they never look back. Not one step back. The monarchs prepare themselves for sacrifice, for gruesome victory, and for barren defeat. Each of them stands behind their soldiers on the well-manicured field that will soon be scattered with commotion. The stereo whisper of names cuts through the low-hanging fog, providing confidence and clarity. The soldiers' eyelids settle down against each other as the whispers gird them for battle, and they wring their gloved hands around the necks of their decorated halberds. A unified leather twist can be heard across both sides of the battlefield as the most central soldier, his armor a sterile white, steps forth in commencement of the battle. At first there is a clash, a brawl in the center of the field, occupying the strength and attention of both sides of the conflict. The first few soldiers fall within seconds, followed by one or two of the members of the monarch's court. After 1 minute and 30 seconds, the previously cluttered battlefield reveals itself as a barren and isolated one. The flanking soldiers remain with their eyes forward, unable to bring outside context to the pristine wasteland. Only the queen is able to do so. Her calculating head rotates omnidirectionally as she finds that the ephemeral whispers only clear the visibility of the battlefield. Anything beyond that is obscured by a dense, rolling fog, writhing like a thunderous ocean.
Next, we have Chloe DeFlumery reading for us.
Hi, I'm going to read a poem that I've written that's untitled, and a poem by Mary Oliver titled Sunrise. I'm going to start with my poem because it's a little bit darker and I feel like it'll be a good contrast. Okay, here goes nothing. God, I need something to meld into that isn't your skin, or the buzz of 3,000 burning arrows at the bottom of my bag. Something that isn't gin or an orgasm. But when memories come to compress, tricking and taking its time, my mind turns topsy on my soul's edge. Then, when I know the slow ticking of blood dripping, the warmth of you is God enough to disarm my bleeding hands, to take that knife of deep-set guilt, and instead, to turn the blade and carve your name deep in the soft skin of my breasts. And this is Sunrise by Mary Oliver. You can die for it, an idea, or the world. People have done so brilliantly, letting their small bodies be bound to the stake, creating an unforgettable fury of light. But this morning, climbing the familiar hills in the familiar fabric of dawn, I thought of China and India and Europe. And I thought how the sun blazes for everyone just so joyfully as it rises, under the lashes of my own eyes. And I thought, I am so many. What is my name? What is the name of the deep breath I would take over and over for all of us? Call it whatever you want. It is happiness. It is another one of the ways to enter the fire.
I love both of your poems. I love your reading. Please read me to sleep all the time, Chloe. Thank you. So the next person we will have reading is actually Emily DeFreitas.
Hey guys, great to be here. I'm an alum from way back when. I'll be reading a couple of my own poems that are pretty short. First one is called Choir Rehearsal. The closest I ever came to meditation in my homeschooling years. Amid the swelling harmonies and crescendos, the building cacophony of a canon, we learned to belly breathe, shaping our phrases, sneaking breaths on fermatas. We sturdied our postures, upright, open, knees bent slightly to prevent fainting, counting the beats until an entrance, listening for all the pieces of the music, learning how soprano, alto, tenor, bass combined. They told me to sing is to pray twice, but singing is a mind and body state, not a faith. We built with blocks of breath and time and feeling, holding and honing our shared focus, the conductor's facial expressions as much a language as her hands. She grinned brightly for a cheery phrase, furrowed her brows for a punchy line, darkened her gaze for a somber moment of reflection. A choir's hum envelops a room like the clear ring of a tuning fork warms and pauses time. A rest, a clap, a stomp in unison, a pause, a punch, thunder. And this other piece is all really, really short. Just picture you've been staring at the job boards for way too long, and like you're starting to think to yourself, like, what if I just said screw it and just like started my own business? This is called entrepreneur. Quit your day job to start your own business, working from home with no healthcare benefits. Requirements: family money preferred. Will accept married to spouse with benefits. Bring your own electronic devices. Vehicle and dedicated office space required. Marketing and accounting skills a must. Must have actual business idea. Anyone can apply. Serious applicants only.
Thank you so much for reading, Emily. That was lovely. And thank you for coming back and spending homecoming with us. It's so great to see alums. Next, we have Mr. Mike Corey reading for us.
Hey, thank you all so much for having me. And Emily, good to see you again, and everyone. I'm also an alum, and I'm a screenwriter. I've only had like one short film produced so far, but I've worked for some producers, and I'm hoping to have a feature film shot in a few months. Everything's always up in the air. But anyway, I'll be reading a scene or two from that, depending on how long they run.
Oh, hi, and I'm Colleen. I'm Mike's partner. I will be assisting with the second role.
All right. And Seth, this actually, so you brought up chess. This is about, it's a story within a story. The first story's about a chess player who's clairvoyant. She can see the future, and that's why she's so good at chess. But then one day she starts getting attacked by a stalker serial killer who's always like one step ahead of her. And she starts to lose her abilities. And it's about the writer writing that story who meets her in real life and has to figure out the ending before this guy actually kills her. And those two meet.
That's really exciting. I'm excited to hear that.
Thank you. So just thought I should mention. And in this scene, they've started to build trust. She's a little freaked out because she's been like stalked by this guy for a year, and she's always having these premonitions of getting killed. But she's managed to escape the serial killer and reconnect with the writer protagonist. And so here they are. Exterior Mountain Road day. The car is exactly where they'd left it. Mira sleeps in the back seat with a blanket over her. The door opens. Barrage gets in with 2 paper bags of fast food hamburgers. Mira winces awake.
We're still here?
Barrage offers her a burger. She hesitates. It's just a burger. She takes a bite. They occasionally chew while talking.
You remember those posters they hang in elementary schools?
Which ones?
Well, any poster.
I remember there being posters, if that's what you mean.
My teacher used to put one up that said, grades are not given, they're earned. He told us that he knew he wasn't entitled to our respect, but he would earn it.
Sounds like a good teacher.
Well, he taught me chess.
Well, that settles it.
In chess, you can be dominating the whole game, but one wrong move, one blunder, and that's it.
Right. That holds for serial killers, too. They get themselves caught. Sooner or later, anyway.
True, but that's not what I'm getting at.
Well, what are you getting at?
Trust is like respect.
It needs to be earned.
Well, you're not entitled to it.
But it can be earned.
Yes, but it can also be lost by one wrong move, like in chess.
Raj takes a bite and chews on this. I disagree. Trust is cumulative. It's more based on your history, like a grade point average.
Well, you think that because you're a guy.
How's it any different?
Because if your trust in me is misplaced, your feelings get hurt. But for women, any man we meet could be that stalker. That's the reality that we see that men don't. I know you want me to trust you. I felt that pressure since the moment we met, but that's exactly what predators do. Trust is their first victim.
All right. And then I'll end the scene there because the rest like connects to other scenes and it would feel disjointed here. Sorry, I'm just trying to find this scene where they're back in their motel room. They're kind of hiding from like cops and the killer at this point. And the killer turns out to be like an off-duty cop who vacations there, so they can't go to the police. And while she's showering, the protagonist, he calls his agent. So he considers the phone a beep before dialing a 10-digit number and then agent.
Hello?
Hey, it's Barrage. I just wanted to apologize. Hello?
Where are you?
I'm still up the horn. That means in the Poconos. But I was calling.
I'm in the story. Where are you in the story?
Yeah. She faced her stalker and lived. I mean, it's not a full novel, but maybe it can be like a novella.
Look, I get this call a few times a year. A failed writer calls me from a random number to say that they can't finish what they started.
No, it's not about that.
All right, so can you return the advance?
No.
Then you can't apologize in advance. Not to me, not yet.
I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep.
Do you think I'm fucking stupid?
I'm sorry.
When a writer doesn't talk to their editor for a year, you think I don't know what that is?
No,
It's insulting to my intelligence.
I'm sorry.
No, you aren't, because you're gonna send me that manuscript.
But there's no way to end it without getting her killed.
Oh, then get her killed. Who gives a fuck? It's a horror story.
I can't. I just can't.
If you want to be a professional writer, promise me that you won't ever let anyone hear you say that again. Ever again. I want you to say it. Say, I promise.
I promise. Ruthie disconnects. The shower shuts off. Barrage hides the phone beneath a pillow as Mira steps out of the bathroom in a clean towel. And then we'll cut it there. So thank you all.
That's fun.
At this point, the festivities turned over to some faculty readers, and we will start with the English department chair, Dr. Michael Kasharal.
All right. So I have a couple of very short pieces. I've been writing a lot of flash fiction the last couple of years, more so since the pandemic. I don't know why. There was something about writing in confined spaces that kind of matched the reality that I was living in. So this is a piece that was published just about a week or two ago, and it's called August Afternoon, Delaware County, PA. Strollers and cycles flow along a paved path that wraps around the Memorial Park. In the pavilion, 3 middle-aged men in wan shirt sleeves sweat to bring the oldies back to life. My Girl first, followed by the off-key ooze of She's Gone. Outside the park, past the refreshment stand, a blacktop lane slides towards the side door of a funeral home, from which a casket descends. Plodding Hall & Oates rocks the pine boat steered by pallbearers into the dark shell of the hearse. Beyond, oblivious to the mourners, customers pour from Wawa, toting coffee and hoagies for the road. That's the first one. And then here's just another short piece. This is inspired by a true event. Not long after my wife and I moved to Indiana many years ago, we encountered a Ku Klux Klan rally, and we were there the night before, and there was a man in a white hood doing a photo shoot on the courthouse stairs. And so that's where this begins. Everything else is fiction, but it was such a frightening thing for us, to have just moved there, and then we were asking ourselves, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? So this story is called Bullseye is a Sign. They'd recently moved to this Indiana town with a square that was quaint until the evening they saw a Klansman standing on the courthouse stairs, hood off, chin raised for the camera's blinding white. Wynn's hand fell from the one she'd been holding. It took her a moment to remember. Yes, that wisp of a beard, David, her husband of 3 weeks. He looked now like a younger version of himself after nearly slipping off a cliff. She probably didn't look much better. "Isn't this your field?" David said, a smile trickling. She had just started graduate work in entomology, pest management, with a focus on ticks. She said, "I've never seen a bug like this before." There was a patrol car by the curb, an officer with crossed arms leaning up against it. Wynn heard voices, laughter. It was unclear from whom. The flashes continued, each a shock to her system. When she looked back, David was gone. No, he was under the streetlight at the door of the coffee shop, waving for her to come. Her head brushed the branches of a tree. She winced and ran fingers through her hair. Again came the laughter, a kind of snap like the action of the flag above. As she approached the shop, she thought about ticks. Their hunger, their poison, their sneaky insidiousness. Her favorite aunt, an avid gardener, had it bad. Nerve pain, numbness, heart issues, palsy. That's a wrap, a low voice from the courthouse stairs. Right. See you and the guys tomorrow. Good times, said the officer, eyes darting her way. Wynne stared. She scratched at a pain beneath her breast. At the door, she moved past the hand and went straight inside. Lights, menu, French roast, scone. She'd take anything now but her husband's eyes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaj. I love hearing faculty read. I feel like we don't get to experience that enough.
Next up was our newest creative writing faculty member, Dr. Jessica Guzman.
All right, so I'm just going to read a couple of poems that I had published earlier this year. And I'm going to start with a poem with a running title, sometimes also called bleeding titles, where the title runs into the first line of the poem. At SeaWorld, Sea Lion, and Otter Stadium, your brother says, the dog is dead. Your mother stands at the start of the aisle, hand to ear, eyes traversing the bleachers' hurrahs. The sea lions raise flippers in response. It is too soon to tell who calls, who denies, who decides to bury the ash. But you are 12 and trying to stop crying in public, so you don't turn your head from the pool's edge, where shade stops and light bounces off a sea lion's whirligig. Call it mindfulness or luck. How he knows and won't remember years later when you bring it up behind the pawn shop on 14th and Fowler, car idling, sunshine knitting your lashes and the catfish rotting 2 parking spaces beyond. Behind you, your brother retches on his socks, while you twirl napkins, scrape the tar swirled in the rococo of his spoon stem. The precision of your tenderness. The Sea Lion enclosure is smallest in the procession of Boeing 747, football field, Walmart parking lot, so they say. But you don't need to look to know a fortune like knowledge can be stolen. Curls smarting your cheeks, thighs stuck to your seat, you believe. You wear memory like a thief. And I'll read one more poem. And this one's titled Mississippi Snow Day, which, if you've been to Mississippi or know much about it, you know how unusual a snow day is there. And while I was there studying for my PhD, strangely enough, it actually snowed twice. So very kind of wild when I think about it. So this poem is Mississippi Snow Day. There's the tire, and there's the rope, and there's the oak, and there's the snow, burdening the branch into a mouth. What sounds distant but collects in the creases of your coat. Or, loud as a freight train to fish, physicists claim of the flakes whose trapped air blares underwater. In other words, an account for what they think they know. There is the roundabout and the trout and the shotgun house, lights out. There's a trout souring skillet flung through the door. Steam sighs from the pores. There is the neighbor on their porch, ear angled towards the rocker's thudded sway. There is the diminuendo, grease splatters, just below the windowsill's display of mosquito dividends. And the silk scaffolding of a cobweb stretched corner to corner. From there, a spider spins and plucks, feels the thrown plate's applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guzman. I always love to see or hear your poetry.
Second that, very hard second that. Very fervently second that.
At this point in the open mic, yours truly jumped onto the faculty bandwagon.
I'll read a poem that I wrote over the summer, and it started by, I was reading the poetry of John Ashbery, and he's a poet that I find extremely difficult, and I've always had trouble cracking into him, but I'm starting to get him a little bit more, and it's just very exciting. And so this is like John Ashbery mashed up with David Bowie's Scary Monsters album, and then add some Esh special sauce, and this poem comes out, but don't ask me what it means. It's called Silhouettes in a Sad Revolution. The wind-up noisy clock cackles, claves stuck upon a jerky beat. reminders that we've become nobody we wanted to be, silhouettes in a sad revolution, 3 steps closer to never prepared for the soft descent, the halo stairway. We'll be all right, she insists. We could be witnessing an all-time low, the death of plastic. Yesterday, I saw someone share a good thing, and I smiled. Omens of rest, of kingdom come. I point to the hills and say, but here come the dominators marching to stumbling rhythms without drums, breaking fingers, tossing bombs, bloody iron balls, evil sticks in our hearts, like oil slicks in Tennessee heat. Can you understand my intuition to be inside something less disgusting than relentless click, shake, shimmy? She says, it's always tomorrow with you. Maybe she wants something I can't give. When I ask, do you want me to sing again? When I act ungrateful, her arms swish a broom as if to swat away the air. Will there be no more dirt tomorrow? There will always be, even in our absence, in fruitless thoughts, our junky, damned world, more dirt, more air.
I love that piece so much, and I'm kind of offended that it took until my senior year for me to hear you read your work. That is a travesty. I feel like hearing all of this beautiful poetry, this beautiful writing is putting me in a meditative place, and I need to keep my head conscious and keep this host persona instead of sitting and reflecting. Okay, I am present.
This was such an enjoyable open mic. Thank you for everybody for reading, and those who didn't read, thank you for attending. It's, it was a great celebration. I really enjoyed it. So
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience.
The English Suite podcast is produced by Jim Esch and students at Widener University. You can find the podcast at Anchor.fm, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcasting outlets. You can send feedback and suggestions to widenerenglishsuite@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope to be back very soon.